Hi, welcome to a new episode of Engineering Rebuilt.
Do you think you know a lot about construction?
Maybe we can provide a fresh perspective.
This is a podcast where we rebuild preconceptions of engineering,
Reclaim the narrative,
and share the voices of women from across the construction industry. Why not join us?
Let's get started.
Welcome to the About Us podcast. In this episode, we will share more about ourselves and why we're making this podcast. We hope you enjoy it. So, Lina, why don't you tell us about yourself?
Hi, Yvonne. So my name is Lina Soderberg. I'm a chartered civil engineer. I'm based in London. I've worked on a lot of the key kind of infrastructure projects in London over the last few years. Most exciting to me was 2 new bridges we built in East London. I'm sure if it's not obvious in this episode, it'll be obvious in other episodes. But I am a big fan of bridges, which is also, I think, what brings me back to why I'm an engineer a lot of the time. I really like bridges.
Who doesn't like bridges?
Me. Yeah, exactly. Weird people. Anyways. So Tina, who are you?
Hi, I'm Tina. I'm also a chartered civil engineer. Currently working as a senior methods engineer to help sites select more sustainable and low carbon methodologies for construction. And I'm also a co-founder of the She Builds Collective with Lina, which is how we met you, Yvonne. And that's why we're all here. So She Builds is an online collective. It's an online meeting place for women in construction to come together, share ideas, experiences, and we sort of invite what we call extraordinary, everyday, ordinary women to take over the account to help create a more realistic role model. And yeah, that's how we got to know you. So, Yvonne, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Yvonne Raleigh. I'm a chartered civil engineer and have been now for 25 years. I've worked for the majority of my career as a main contractor, and I've built some amazing things, including the Spinnaker Tower, which we're definitely going to talk about in another episode. I also have a thing about bridges, but I don't know an engineer that doesn't really. Currently, I'm running 2 businesses and balancing that with looking after 2 amazing kids.
I was just going to bring up, take us back to what Tina was saying earlier. So we started She Builds like 8 months ago. And I think that's kind of why we're here as well with this podcast, right? Because there are so many really inspirational and really amazing women in this industry. But because we make up 12%, it can sometimes be hard to find everybody else. So thanks to She Builds, we've now met Yvonne, and thanks to this podcast, I am selfishly very excited about all the people I'm going to get to meet, and everybody who's listening is going to get to meet as a result of what we're going to be talking about. So that's why we're here, right? Or
Absolutely.
Yvonne, why are you here?
No, I'm here for exactly that reason. At the end of the day, the frustration for me is that women in engineering is seen as like an exceptional thing. Women in engineering shouldn't be exceptional. We make up the majority of the population. So why is it extraordinary that we are wanting to be engineers? Women make fantastic engineers. And we also make ordinary engineers, and that's okay too. It's an interesting thing that women are always expected to be exceptional. Oh, she wasn't really exceptional. Well, yeah. How many men have you met that are exceptional? So let's be realistic. There are some amazing women that we're going to be talking to, and actually a couple of men, because there's some interesting conversations that we want to have about how women in construction are perceived and what we bring to the party. And that's kind of why we created this as an idea. We originally called it something entirely different, but we've lulled you in with a false sense of security. So hopefully you'll stick with us. Lina, Tina, what do you think?
I was thinking about what brought the three of us together, because we haven't actually known each other that long. And I was going through my emails, and I think it was Malcolm who connected us through one of your articles, Yvonne. And in his introductory
Malcolm
email,
Peake,
yeah,
who's
Malcolm
an
Peake,
MDO.
sorry,
Classy.
an amazing human being. But in it, he said, "I think the
Yes,
three
he
of
is.
you will get on like a house on fire." And I don't think he realized what he was doing when he wrote that, or when he connected us.
Oh God, no. Interesting.
So yeah, I'm here because I think this podcast is going to be an amazing platform, right? It's an opportunity for people to share their stories and share their ideas. And I think every single person has a story to tell. And the more people that I've started talking to outside of my network, the more I realize how amazing people are and how good at people are in just overcoming challenges and issues. So this is, I guess, a way for us to just have that really honest conversation.
Absolutely, and I think that's key to this. This is not a glossy equality setting. This is a reality check on what engineering looks like from a female perspective. It's about how we see the industry and how the industry sees us, and what we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. And I think it's really important that people understand the challenge that we go through as female engineers. Yes, it's an amazing industry to work in. I absolutely love the industry, and I wouldn't change a single decision I've made in the industry. But it is also incredibly challenging, isn't it, Lina?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's an amazing place to work, but some things at the moment just don't work maybe quite as well as they should be working to really allow everybody to come into the construction industry and do their best in the construction industry. I think, Yvonne, you've set yourself some good challenges for this year around that and how we're going to start to change that. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so I'm in a really good position at the moment because I run my own company. I don't actually have to care about who hears what I say. I think it's quite a privileged position. A lot of women in the industry have the challenge of having to balance the politics of the offices they work in and not being vocal, with the desire to change the industry. For me, I'm fed up with waiting. I've been waiting 30 years for the industry to change. There were 6% women when I joined 30 years ago. There's 11 or 12%, depending on how you measure it now in the industry. 30 years for 6% is frankly ridiculous. And when we looked at the She Builds collective survey a couple of weeks ago, we surveyed people on how many of them had suffered discrimination or abuse. 90%. I mean, that's a measure of how hard this industry is, with 97% of those people having witnessed discrimination or abuse. So yeah, absolutely. I think that this is a year where I want to make a lot of noise, where I want to challenge the industry to be different, to be inclusive, not just for women, but for everybody. Because at the end of the day, the current white male majority for the construction industry is wrong. I mean, it cannot function at the level it needs to function at unless it's diverse. And we're missing massive opportunities as an industry to include the voices of everybody, whether that's women, whether that's other minorities. We are underrepresented. So, Tina, you had some interesting views on this one.
Actually, I was going to talk about those statistics that we saw in that poll. I think they just really mind blowing. And I know She Builds is a bit of a self-selected group, right? Like the name selects itself. But the fact that 88, I think it was, % of people who responded to that survey have experienced it firsthand in a work setting is just not acceptable. And it's not something that we talk about. And I guess that's something that we really need to work towards changing. So
I think that's really interesting as well, because when you think about what it means, when you talk about kind of the types of sexual harassment or inappropriate behavior or uncomfortable behavior that, in this case, it was mostly that women experience in the construction industry. What it comes down to is so simple. It's like we work in an industry that's not treating people with respect, and it's not treating people with kindness, and it's not taking care of people. And those are such basic values that I think we should all have as people in the way we interact with everybody. And we're not doing it at the moment. So how do we do it properly? How do we get people to see that behavior that they think is okay is making somebody else feel really uncomfortable? Because not only do we have an issue with getting women into the industry, they come in and then they leave for a number of reasons. So I think, like Yvonne said as well, it's so important. If we're going to keep building big infrastructure, if we're going to keep building all these really necessary structures and developments that we need to keep ourselves moving and keep ourselves moving forward, then we need to not just get women in, we need to convince them that it's an industry worth staying in as well.
Yeah. I think 65% of women leave the industry within 12 months of joining, compared to 45. I mean, compared to 45% of men. I mean, the construction industry is definitely not for everybody, but for 65%, I mean, these could be women who've done 3 years of engineering degree or 4 years of engineering degree, and then still walk away after a very short period of time. That must have been their dream, to put that commitment into doing a degree or an apprenticeship or whatever it is, and then to walk away is a real tell on how difficult it is to be in the industry. And when people say, oh, we're celebrating 11%, there's been a rise of 1% in the last 3 years in the number of women in the industry. And I think, but that's actually 1% more women who are just hanging on in there and putting up with the stress because they are really passionate about engineering. And I think that's the thing that connects the three of us, is we are absolutely passionate about engineering, and the construction industry being the best possible place, because it could be an amazing place. And we're just missing an opportunity for it to be amazing.
Yeah.
Completely agree. Agree. And
you need that.
Go on.
No, go for it, Tina.
There's no like magic solution, right? We're all looking for this way to, I guess, retain women and like retain people for the right reasons too. Making it a nice environment that's something you want to work within. And from my experience, just having conversations with people who maybe don't understand, like just having the courage to have that conversation and speaking up in the first place, it kind of helps with the emotional intelligence, it helps with the empathy, it helps with the unconscious biases that they maybe don't realize was there in the first place. And maybe it's the engineering like within me that thinks that sitting around chatting all day isn't the solution. It needs to kind of then lead into action. But if we can even just spark something, right, with these conversations, if that can lead into action, I think we're on track for something much bigger, which I'm really excited about. Sorry, Lina, I cut you off.
I mean, this is step one.
Go on.
This is definitely just step one.
No, that's all right. Yeah. No, all I was going to say is I come back to this example in my head a lot, but how women are something like 50% more likely to have a serious injury in a car accident because they use dummies in car accident testing that are based on male bodies. And I don't think anybody's done that on purpose. But what you've done is you've taken what seemed like the best individuals for a job at the time, and you've put them together thinking that these best individuals will make the best team. But because there's no diversity in there, because you're only getting one type of person in there, you only get a solution that works for one type of person.
Yeah.
And so picking the best individuals doesn't give you the best team. And with the sorts of decisions that we're making in the construction industry for how this country will work, how other countries will work, really major infrastructure projects like HS2 and Crossrail and like the future of how our entire societies are going to work in the future. We need to be designing and building things that are fit for purpose for everybody. And we can't just be picking the best individuals for those projects and thinking that they're going to make the best teams. We need to be understanding what are the skill sets and what are the perspectives that we need in the situation to be able to deliver the best possible products. And so, 11% isn't enough, right? We're not going to get there with 11%.
No, 11% is definitely not enough. And it's interesting because when you look at all of the research that's been done on how diversity impacts teams, diverse teams make better decisions 87% of the time. They make faster decisions. So if you've got a diverse team, if your board of directors, for example, is diverse, then you can make better strategic decisions faster. Your operational teams would work faster and more efficiently if they were diverse. I mean, the figures are out there. There's been lots of research done on this by really major sort of places like Harvard University. I mean, they've looked at these things and they've gone, what does it look like? What does diverse do for you? Diverse means you make more money, you make it faster, you make quicker decisions, you're operationally more efficient. Well, I'm sorry, but what kind of idiot doesn't then want to be diverse? And so why is it taking us so long to get to a point where we are a diverse environment? Women on boards of construction companies. Name 3. Oh yeah, look.
This is what's so interesting in that I think it was McKinley released a study saying just having that one isn't enough. So having one token woman or one token like being minority isn't enough. You have to have at least 2 or more. And I guess because it allows for that conversation. So naming 3, unheard of. Because I don't think people have sussed that you have to have at least 2. They think 1 is enough.
Absolutely. It's interesting though.
And how many engineering, I mean, by definition, every engineering meeting that I sit in has at least 1 woman. But there's never 2. Like there's so rarely 2. And how many are going on that I'm not in, that have 0? I don't have any maths for that, but it's just my personal experience. One is all the time, 2 is sometimes, and 3 is never.
It is a ridiculous scenario. I mean, 30 years I worked in the industry, 25 years in site-based environments, tendering and also on site. But I mean, in the whole time I was on site, there were only 2 jobs where there was another woman working in an engineering role. I mean, yes, there were women PAs, there were women office managers, but actually somebody on the coalface working with me. Yeah, I mean, it was twice in 17 years. It's, I mean, utterly ridiculous. But there is light, because if you look at somewhere like Heathrow, we do a lot of aviation work, and look at Heathrow Airport and the initiative they're running in terms of inclusion. They are saying that by 2025, their workforce is going to, all the way to CEO level, is going to represent the community that they sit within. So 49% women at all levels, 39% ethnic makeup at all levels. So it's all the way from CEO down, and they're going to match every single band of their environment with the same composition as the local community. And for me, that's the way that this is going to work, because it's going to be clients that will drive that conversation. But construction companies who choose to embrace diversity are going to be seen in a much better light, because the clients are looking for that diversity. If you turn up at a client interview and the client interview panel is a diverse environment, and you're turning up with a 4-man white male over 60 setup, or maybe over 50 if we're being generous, then how can you be taken seriously by a client who really does value diversity? Do your actions speak louder than your words? It's all well and good having an equality, diversity and inclusion policy, but in so many cases, that's just a whitewash, quite literally, over a rotten core. And I think that there's so many conversations that people should be having, and that's why this is a really good environment for us to showcase what women can change. So, I mean, if we're looking at the next 5 years in the industry, I'd really, really like for us to have made significant change, not 1%, not 2%, but 20%, 30%, because unless we push our own narrative, then we are never going to get there. We are not a minority. We are the majority. We are underrepresented in the workplace, and it's time it stopped. Sorry, I'm off my soapbox now, girls.
No, I love your soapbox. How do we get there?
How do we get there? We get there by being really, really loud and compelling. I mean, we're engineers. We do data. We know what the data shows. We can show what the data shows. And I think that there's just not even that, nobody's looking at the data. They have a director, and they're floating in the balloon above the rainforest, and they're looking down. They're going, "Hey, look, everything's green." And if they actually came down below the canopy, they'd see that everything was really a war. I mean, it's a engineer environment down here, and that's not the way it should be running. So the directors and the board members and the CEOs need to get off of their ivory towers and come down to the bottom. And things like reverse mentoring, things that where there is a real opportunity for people to engage with people who can change their understanding of how this works. Because if they continue to just listen to white, pale male voices, they're never going to hear anything new. I love the way Tina was smiling at that. Go on, Tina.
Reverse mentoring. Yeah, I've helped set up like pilot schemes within our business, and I've reverse mentored senior leaders in our industry, and it's that like planting the seed and sparking the conversation and just helping them understand what's going on, because they're not told these things, I guess, because they don't naturally go and talk to these kinds of people on site, or that's not the conversation you wouldn't open up and have this brutally honest conversation with your CEO, for instance, when they're down on a site visit. So they don't get to hear these things unless you create that safe environment to have an honest conversation. So yeah, I'm a big fan of reverse mentoring, and I think it will help, like for me, in the next 5 years, and how we get to that 20-30%. I think culture will play a really, really big role in helping us get there. So creating and changing the culture into something that people are attracted to something that they, it's a place where they want to work rather than a place where they want to leave. So culture is a really, really big one for me. And I think it goes hand in hand with sustainability, which is the other big passion of mine. So in 5 years, I would love to see us make big steps towards net zero by 2050, to kind of have finished picking all the low-hanging fruit, all the easy solutions, and start to like really, really think and get creative about how we're going to do net zero. And I think that's where diversity comes in. We're going to need people who think differently, people who dare to try something new, think outside the box, try new ideas and solutions. So we need that diverse thinking. I think the two go hand in hand. And I know, Lina, sustainability is something that you're also quite close to your heart. So
yeah, I think it's something that we've bonded over a lot as we've kind of got to know each other. But I think sustainability is also really exciting, right? We talk about civil engineering and we all talk about being problem solvers, and the sustainability is such an awesome opportunity to take problem solving to take problem solving to the new level. Like, how do we completely change the way that we do things so that we're actually making a better world for the future, not just the infrastructure, but the climate and the environment and everything. So it seems like a natural step for engineers to want to take on the climate crisis, because problem solving is what we do anyways. So why not do it in this setting?
Absolutely. And that's probably a good place to pause and pick that conversation up with our next guest.
Yeah, I'm so excited to meet some new people and have even more conversations with both of you and the speakers that we have on here. I'm really, really looking forward to it. I can't imagine two better people to be doing it with. It's going to be
likewise
excellent.
It's going to be a hell of a party, ladies.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Engineering Rebuilt. We hope you enjoyed being part of the conversation. Please join us next time to hear more diverse stories from people who are reclaiming their narrative to rebuild engineering.